With Keiichi, Rena, and Mion's deaths, the looming threat hovering over the village of Hinamizawa will continue to lurk. It will continue to consume its residents, little by little. Years will go by, and new victims will lead Demon the way. We couldn't do anything to stop it this time. I mean, how could we at this point? There's so little that we could have done. But will we eventually be able to stop it? We've seen it with our own eyes, what Keiichi went through. We can only imagine the pain and suffering that Rena and Mion went through because of Keiichi. The villagers, the families of the victims, they're all suffering now because of the recent tragedy. Rika and Satoko, suffering, tormented over the loss of 3 of their best friends. It happened again. Their lives keep getting worse and worse each year. It makes me wonder how deep their pain is.
私もね、たまにね、あの恐怖が蘇るのよ。私は本当にあの地獄を抜けられたのかしらって。実は私の心はとっくにおかしくなっていて、あの地獄の中に未だいながら、ここにこうしていて、楽しくあんたたちと話をしているという妄想を見ているだけなのかもしれないと。ねえ、あんたたちは本当に現実？未だに地獄の中にいて、壊れた私が見ている妄想じゃないの？ねえ、ねえ。
とにかく屈服しないで、思考を止めないで、あらゆる可能性を否定しないで。もしまだ膝を抱いているなら、早く立ち直って。こういう時なんて言ったかしら。そのファイトを。
Fight on. Alright, let's go through this. First, I believe one of the most important aspects that will more than likely cover the entirety of the Higurashi case is the thin line between objective reality and what goes through Keiichi's mind. His mind being affected by what is going on here. I do believe as of now that there are times where what we see is something we can trust, and other times that we shall take with a little grain of salt, or have to interpret it in a different way than how we normally do with our own eyes. And I don't even have eyes to begin with, so go figure. Yumineko did this. It is important to note that Yumineko came after Higurashi, and really, I can see it. I can see that Higurashi may end up having some prototype ideas that will be further developed in Yumineko, while Higurashi also stays as its own separate, beautiful story. And differentiating between different perspectives of the characters and how some moments should be viewed, that is one of the ideas that Ryukishi started with, and then worked with it in Yumineko as well. So yeah, with that being said, I do believe that what Keiichi sees and experiences at times may not end up being 100% truthful. I mean, Literally, this first chapter introduces the idea of paranoia, hysteria, suicide, that the victim went bonkers, and how there is something that causes this weird change in mental states. Like, it is there for you to question it. Like, in retrospect, it is a lot more obvious to question it. And who's at fault for this? The government. Oh, the government. Haven't felt such vitriol towards the government since Root Double Before Crime After Days, which is something that you should totally read. Why aren't you reading it yet, motherfuckers? You guys probably know of Justice League. No, not that stupid Justice League. Like, get it out of here. This Justice League. There was a character called Question. He was the superhero detective with good deductive skills. The conspiracy buff.
Don't listen to this guy. Everything's conspiracies with him.
Not conspiracies. Conspiracy. Singular. Reaching back to ancient Egypt, there's been a single cabal of powerful individuals directing the course of human history. But the common man prefers to believe they don't exist, which aids their success.
Global warming, military upheavals in the Third World, actors elected to public office.
The spread of coffee bars, germs outpacing antibiotics, and boy bands? Come on. Who would gain from all this?
Who indeed?
Now, okay, I say government, but in the end, we don't know who is behind this. At best, we know that there were some people in black suits, a director and a doctor near Keiichi's house, looking for him and trying to fulfill some goals of theirs. 4 or 5, or even more, men gathered at the gate, and they resembled the two at the damn site. One person wearing a white coat, but didn't look like a doctor like at all, according to Keiichi. He might be the doctor mentioned by Mion and Rena before. The man in white coat heads to the door, while the rest hid in the bushes. There was also a white car parked behind the men, the white van from before that almost killed Keiichi. They came in the house after Keiichi ran away and wiped away all the evidence of whatever is going on. The note being ripped is probably the most obvious out of all the evidences here. These are the lines that the men ripped away, and they also took the syringe that was stuck behind the clock. Obviously, they are getting rid of the fact that some form of drug or syringe is involved in all this. Also, that the dismemberment is important to what is happening here. A lot of people will think this is all happening because of Oyashiro's curse, but these men don't want it to be seen as anything more than that. They don't want this to be seen as something caused by drugs or some unknown disease or biological weapon. With that being said, this raises a few questions. Could this also mean that the victim from the dismemberment is truly alive? And that these men know that he is, therefore they had to get rid of this line because of it as well? That's, I don't know. And 2, how come they didn't get rid of this line as well? There are 4 or 5 adults, maybe more. They have a white van. When you think about it, you could also argue that they should have gotten rid of the entire note and not just rip it in 2 and get rid of some lines. Because if done this way, I guess I get it. They transformed one big note into 2 separate notes of equal size, making people think that these are 2 completely separate notes, when in actuality, it was one big note from the start. And that is what these men wanted to do. They wanted to make it look like there were 2 small notes from the start. And because of that, they had to get rid of some of these lines without making the cut look too suspicious. So they had no choice but to leave that line behind. Or, on the other hand, they could have gotten rid of the entire note completely. Now, of course, they didn't, because they wanted to leave the remaining note to also continue the illusion of Oyashiro being the one responsible. Because, well, if you are to look at the rest of the note, one can say that Keiichi went complete bonkers, because of Oyashiro's curse. Except for this line. There are 4 or 5 adults, maybe more. They have a white van. Except for this line, these men want to keep the police in the dark, continue making it look like a curse. Therefore, you can say that there is a divide between these men and the police, between them and Ooishi, because one of the biggest questions I have throughout this chapter is, how much does Ooishi know? Can one trust him? And that everything Ooishi knows is out of his desire to find the truth and stop all this? Or is he disguising himself and is working with these people to further continue the murdering and whatever plan they have? To use Keiichi to gradually make him more and more affected by the quote-unquote curse, by putting a lot of information in his mind, to make him worry more and more and be more susceptible to it, in accordance with this secret organization. Because the idea that I had in mind throughout the chapter is that maybe the people involved with the damn protest and those who try to figure out what is behind this curse are those more susceptible to death, like each year. Whether it is from those from the village, or outside strangers, or any of those people. But what about Ooishi? Since he is also looking into this, trying to figure out what is happening, how come he has not died till now? How come this secret organization did not axe him until now? That, I think, is one of the biggest reasons why one would suspect him. Either he is in cahoots with the organization, or a different spin to it is the secret organization cannot kill Ooishi. Or this is a case of how even if the organization kills those who try to uncover what is happening, them going after the police, it would be just too much at that point. They might need the police alive after all, so that the image of Oyashiro's curse can still be made public after all. Or, on a more personal level, maybe someone who is involved with the organization is very much connected to Ooishi and would not want him hurt, even if they are on separate factions. Ooishi wants to stop the organization, but the organization cannot directly stop him, only disguise the events to the best of their abilities. Maybe the leader of the organization is Ooishi's brother, or his son, or daughter, something like that. There are times when Ooishi said he was denied access to information. For example, when the doctor couldn't tell Ooishi much about Rena, back when she had that episode in school about breaking the windows. Also, when it comes to him being suspicious, it has been noted that whenever death happened, Ooishi was there. That Ooishi is a messenger of Oyashiro, that whenever he shows, someone is demoned away. When Rika's mom drowned, she was visited by Ooishi. Same for when he was around before Satoshi's transfer. Same for Keiichi. And not to mention that Ooishi, when he was talking to Keiichi, he did not want him to tell this stuff to his friends. Specifically Sanazaki and Furude? Why them specifically? Why are they more important than Satoko and Rena? Well, maybe because he sees Satoko and Rena as the victims in all this. Whereas Mion and Rika, they are more suspicious in his eyes. Combined with how Mion curses the old man Ooishi for leaking all this to Keiichi, and cursed herself to have not killed him back then, that he forgot the mercy she showed him just because he was going to retire this year. Combined with that, it really makes you think of the following. Mion and Ooishi, they are suspecting each other for whatever is happening. Ooishi is suspecting Mion and her family for whatever is happening. And since the Sonozakis were said to have led the damn protests, aka when the string of deaths started, Ooishi is suspecting the Sonozakis for the deaths. Not to mention that out of all the deaths that happened so far, Nobody died in Mion's family as far as we are aware. Only in the families of Rika, Satoko, and now Keiichi. Because if you are a family that is involved in murders, why would you kill your own family members? That is something that Ooishi probably questioned at some point. Now, on one hand, there is really no information that connects the priest or Rika's family like at all to the damn protests, the same way the Sonozakis are. Like, there is really no connection made between the Sonozakis and the priest, but at the same time, a Shinto priest in a small Japanese village is important. It may be that the priest and Rika's family in general are very important people in the village, the same way the Sonozakis are. In fact, one could think that the Shinto priest was in cahoots with the Sonozakis, and because of some errors that happened, they had to axe the priest off. What about Rena? Well, it is true now that we know Rena's family did live here in Hinamizawa, but maybe this is a case of Ooishi believing that Rena truly is more of a victim in this whole thing, rather than a perpetrator. Or maybe Ooishi thinks Rena and her family are involved too, but something tells me that the Sonozakis are Ooishi's primary suspects. When I look at chapter 1 of Higurashi, there is definitely something between Ooishi and Mion that makes me think of it that way. I mean, Mion literally said so herself, that she had this huge conflict with him before. She fought before. It couldn't have been made more clear by Mion's last words at school on the last day before Keiichi's death. I mean, does this mean that the Sonozakis are the secret organization? That, I don't know. But it makes you question, where did Mion get that syringe from? Back when Mion and Rena were in Keiichi's room, ready to inject that in him. Whether the Sonozakis and the secret organization are one and the same, or they are not, Mion definitely knows about something biological being involved in what is happening to Keiichi, and what happened to the past victims. Where did she get that? Does this mean that she is the bad guy? Well, as of now, I will not think of her that way. Like, whether the Sonozakis are the ones responsible or not, like, no matter what, it can be possible to think that Mion is totally against it. Maybe this drug found in the syringe is the cure to whatever happened to Keiichi. This brings back the possibility that she either secretly procured this syringe from her family, like wherever they are developing this drug or biological weapon, like wherever it is, or a separate secret organization that we are not aware of yet, or from the doctor of the village who Keiichi visited at a hospital, the doctor who may work for either the Sonozakis or the secret organization. I mean, when you think about it, if there is this unknown organization out there that is keeping the people of Hinamizawa and this entire curse in check, to make sure that the secrets are not revealed, they do need people in high positions to oversee the village, right? Like, if we are talking about something that affects people's minds, if we're talking about some biological weapon that has effects on a human body, what better way to view the progress than to also have a doctor on standby? Maybe the doctor at the hospital checked Keiichi to see how deep he is in the quote-unquote curse, and then the secret organization is like, okay, I think it is time we pull the plug on Keiichi now. We got what we need. Or something like that. A doctor, or at least a person in white coat, was seen near Keiichi's house. They do need a doctor or a scientist when dealing with this stuff. Yeah, it makes sense to me. The reason why I think it is a cure to Keiichi's rabies is because in the end, I'm still thinking that whatever is this infection, it is untraceable. The police are not able to figure out what it is, or how the victims were infected. A drug cure, on the other hand, seems to be something that can be traced. Like, we have two separate things here. An infection that affects the victims and harms them, untraceable. Whereas the drug that Mion had is something traceable. And obviously, this cure is not something that the organization wants to be found. But what if the victims are cured of the infection? That they would get the cure in time and they get healed from the infection. Well, that's no good then. So, what would a secret organization do with a person that got cured in that case? They erase them entirely. This could be a reason for why some of these people of the past just downright disappeared. Because they got cured and they found out about what is happening. Because if they died and they have this cure in them that the police would be able to trace, well, that's not good. Because if the police were to find this cure inside their bodies, they could probably reverse engineer it and figure out what the infection is. So how would the secret organization be able to get rid of traces of this cure? By making the bodies disappear entirely. Whereas the infection itself still remains hidden. It really makes you think, why did Keiichi's body not disappear when he died? Because he did not get the cure. Keiichi thought that Mion was going to infect him with that syringe, but in actuality, Mion wanted to cure him, and so he killed Mion and Rena, and ran away. The men more than likely figured out that a cure was stolen beforehand, because of Mion. So the organization had to find Mion, the cure, and Keiichi. And so the man chased after Keiichi. And after finding Keiichi in the telephone booth, they killed him. And with no traces of cure in him, they realized that Keiichi was not cured. Thus they're all, phew, thank goodness he was not cured, and that the police did not get here before us. Well, we can leave him behind for the police to find him. Let's go. Whereas, if Keiichi was cured and they found him, with traces of cure still inside the body, they would have more than likely demoned him away. So, with all this talk of doctors and drugs, it makes me think back to someone, Mio Takano. She might know about all this. She was a nurse at the same hospital where the evil doctor resides. She would have access to all the information if she were to sneak around. Or maybe she's also in cahoots with the organization. Who knows? What we know is that she is gone. Did they kill her after learning too much? Can we say the same thing about the wife of the man in 1980 who supported the dam fall? The one that fell off a cliff overlooking some rapids? Can the same be said about the wife of the priest who was thought to have committed suicide with no body left behind? Can the same be said about Satoko's brother, Satoshi, who went missing? Did they all have some traces of the cure inside them? Therefore, they had to be disposed of entirely? Whereas the rest of the victims died by the infection, left them behind to create and continue the image of Oyashiro's curse, maybe? Maybe. But alright, let's pull back for a second, because I need to remind myself of this. If I am to go down this rabbit hole, we don't know the extent of how imaginative Keiichi's mind is with all of this happening. Like, what is real? What isn't real? Because, okay, I had this idea before that maybe that needle in Rena's food that he ate back home, maybe wasn't a needle. That it was something else, maybe? Mion confesses to what she calls a prank, but the idea of a needle being used, it was never stated out loud. Maybe it was something else. Maybe there was no needle to begin with. Keiichi tried to find it again long after that event, but with no luck. You cannot find or recollect something that doesn't exist. Keiichi's narration even says the following. That wasn't the same as putting Tabasco sauce in a piece of mochi. When talking to Mion at school before his death, maybe that truly was some Tabasco sauce. Maybe that sauce was something that he felt down his throat, that his throat got hurt, which is the equivalent of the needle stinging his insides a little bit, before he quote-unquote caught it with his fingers and threw it away. Maybe there was never a van that almost hit him like at all. He never got the chance to see what the license plate on that van was, because there was no van maybe. Maybe the syringe was never there to begin with. Or Keiichi confused it with something else, which triggered him to kill Mion and Rena. Maybe those people near Keiichi's house, they were never there to begin with. Maybe the reason why the line, there are 4 or 5 adults, maybe more, they have a white van. Maybe the reason why this line was still left behind was because there truly were not that many people there, that he was hallucinating them. Still, someone had to be there to rip the note in two and get rid of those lines. So, okay, what we know for sure is that someone was there and got rid of some evidence. But the syringe? Who knows? Then again, there is this other angle. Maybe the secret organization has nothing to do with the creation of the infection. Or maybe they did, and they're trying to fix something here. Maybe this curse truly exists since time began or something. Who knows? But all this secret organization is doing right now is trying to prevent it from happening? This goes back to the idea of how some people disappear and how the doctor is involved. Some people are infected, and the doctor realizes, oh shit, this person is infected too. The curse got to him real bad. And so, all these people that disappeared are actually captured by the government or some secret organization, so that they do research on this curse and find a cure for it. But they have to keep it all a secret for right now, for some reason. The police doesn't know. The villagers don't know. Maybe the doctor and Mio know this. Maybe Keiichi went to the hospital. The doctor thought to himself, oh no, this person is infected this badly. Well, time to call the organization and get him. And then the organization came to his home, including possibly that same doctor. And they're all like, alright Boyle, you are coming with us. We're not gonna kill ya. We're trying to prevent you from killing other people and yourself. But Keiichi, he ran away and killed himself. And those men were too late to capture him alive, so they left him behind. I mean, what else are you gonna do with a dead body? That's not gonna be of any use to you to do a research on, so they left him behind. But then you ask yourself, well, why did they try to kill Keiichi with the van that day? Because, again, Keiichi's mind becomes very imaginative. The intensifies due to stress and anger, and imagines the van trying to kill him, when the van was nowhere close to him, and he fell in the puddle of mud himself. Like, the narration, like in Season 1, Episode 16, said covered in mud, but without injury, not even a sprain. Even though before it was said that even if he dodged it, the side mirror struck his shoulder, sending him spinning through the air, locked in his contorted position. That should have hurt. So there is a contradiction right over here going on, in my eyes. If that is the case, this means that Mion truly could have had a cure on her. The Sonozakis might be aware of this, and they want to help. Mion would know this. She would have a cure for it. But the police think that the Sonozakis / the secret organization are the bad guys that created the infection and needed to be stopped. And maybe the Sonozakis, maybe Mion, they think that Ooishi / the police are involved with a secret organization that created the infection. Both factions are blaming each other for the creation of this infection. Who has created the infection? Who has made the cure? So, what the hell is it? Is it the Sonozakis? Is it the secret organization? Are they both the same? Is it neither of them, but some other organization? Is it truly a god's curse? Is it the Higurashis? Yeah, let's talk about the infection itself. Hey there! If you felt generous and enjoyed what you saw, Coffee is the place for you to support your local skeleton. Also, make sure to hit the subscribe button, notification bell, and join Discord and Twitter for discussions and updates. With that being said, let's continue. Before, I talked about traceable and untraceable drugs and infections and all that stuff. And when I say that these people are infected with a untraceable infection, it means something that the police cannot detect. They tried their damnedest to find it, with no luck. And I did offer some options about it during my read-through of Chapter 1, that it is either something that affects your mind through sounds or through visuals. One of two things. When it comes to the visual aspect, I assume you guys know about stuff like optical illusions, subliminal messages, that sort of stuff that can affect your brain in subconscious ways that you do not realize. There is this one part in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, like some of you will know, where this stand user's power managed to affect people's bodies by having the victims just look at a specific thing. And it has to do with subliminal messaging from what I remember. You see a image on a subconscious subliminal way, pop, it took form, and now you're dead. You look at the TV, there is this 1 nanosecond image of a frog on the screen, and then boom, now you're a frog. The other way of doing this is by sound. And yes, I'm looking at you, Higurashi. No, not the story, I mean you, the insect, Higurashi. The Higurashis, the cicadas, they are so prevalent in this, and at the same time so innocent looking. You would not think that they are the ones responsible. I am aware of the different sounds that Higurashis make, that there are different kinds of Higurashis, like the ones that sound like regular Higurashis. And the specific Higurashi, the visual novel type Higurashi, the insect, that you hear, for example, in like the menu screen. Like, you can go to different kinds of moments during Chapter 1 where things are getting intense, and you hear the Higurashi, almost as if they keep intensifying the bad mental state of Keiichi's, the more he hears these sounds. How does it work? Well, I will tell you this, folks. I am not a scientist. I am just a frog. Wait, no. Actually... I am a skeleton. Maybe the sounds that the Higurashis make have like a specific frequency that contains specific data, specific information in them that will affect the brain in ways that it normally shouldn't. Does this mean that someone artificially altered the Higurashis in a laboratory so that they can make these sounds? Or are these very special, very rare Higurashis that only exist here in Hinamizawa since the beginning of time and nowhere else on Earth? We do know from the forensic investigator the following details. It is like a person with serious bipolar disorder. Most people attempt to suicide when swinging from depression to mania. Clinical depression and bipolar disorder are different. Clinical depression is a prolonged state of depression. Bipolar disorder is a passive depression accompanied by a very manic state. It is said that clinical depression people have low self-esteem and are pessimistic, therefore do not have the willpower to commit suicide. Mania is the opposite. since it fills the person with confidence and making them feel as though they are walking on air, and so no suicide. In conclusion, when you take the confidence of the mania and put it in the depressed person, now the depressed person has the willpower to commit suicide. So it can be a result of a mix of depression and mania. When the depressed person enters the mania state, they gain a burst of willpower. Thing is, bipolars would commit suicide in more civilized way. Hanging, falling off the building, falling off the boat into water, and drowning. That does not fit Tomitake. Now granted, we do not know what these victims of the past are like. And we do know that Tomitake, from the looks of it, and Keiichi, they're not depressive people. But at the same time, I get the feeling that disinfection takes root when people start to get stressed and angry. The more you become stressed or angry, the more it affects you and intensifies it. That's sort of the thing that I'm noticing with Keiichi and may very well be true. Like, it is like a gradual thing where it doesn't matter what kind of personality you have, whether depressed or cheerful. Maybe these sounds or images that enter the victim's brain are affecting him in a way that, if you are stressed or angry or paranoid, certain thoughts and feelings pop in your head without you realizing, and without your will. Maybe it is a case of drastically accentuating that flight or fight survival mentality, like inside your brain, like more than ever. Your brain will know when you are in danger and when you should not worry. But maybe there is an external force coming from outside telling you, this person in front of you is dangerous, this person in front of you is dangerous, this person in front of you is dangerous, like over and over again, totally against your better judgment of the situation. However, that is me talking about how the brain changes the way it thinks, but what about what Keiichi actually sees? Cause if it was just the way Keiichi thinks, like no matter how aggressive or terrified or suicidal Keiichi is, Keiichi shouldn't be able to see these grim images of Rena and Mion with hollowed eyes. It's like he enters this nightmare-like hallucination. This isn't a case of how, oh, Keiichi is extra mad or terrified, he is reading the situation completely wrong, whereas you will see Rena and Mion being scared out of their mind and being confused. But no, Keiichi is literally seeing demons right in front of him, in the form of Rena and Mion. He's seeing things like needles that he normally shouldn't. And then I have to ask, what causes hallucinations? But, again, I am no scientist or medical expert. Like, it can be anything. Schizophrenia symptoms, migraine factors, brain tumors, it's... How these things affect the brain is beyond me as of now. Most of what I'm trying to figure out here is where it comes from, who created it, what is the source, how it enters the victim's body, and the behavior of the victims affected by it. I would not be able to tell you chemical compositions, I would not be able to tell you which chemicals or symptoms are taken from this disease and what symptoms are taken from that disease. It's beyond me. Rena, no doubt, was affected by this. And as I said, this can be accentuated by levels of stress and anger. A more spiritual explanation of it is that those who live the village are betraying it. They are cursed for living the village. But then how in the world do people like Tomitake and Ooishi keep coming and going whenever they want, and be fine for the most part? Only now Tomitake was affected by it, but what about the other years? Well, let's think about the stress aspect. Other years, Tomitake was not affected by it. He seems like a cool, decent, chill guy. But now something happened for him to become more stressed or anxious. And now the infection is finally taking place on him more than usual. And then boom! He died. Ooishi, he himself seems more lax. He is a calm detective that tries to figure out everything. He has seen his share of cases as a police investigator, so the infection is not getting to him as much. Rena? We're talking about a poor little widow teenage girl, a sweetheart of a girl that moved out of Hinamizawa into a new home, new school, new people. Moving to a new place and adapting to a new life? That is pretty stressful for our little baby here. Combined with a possible conflict that Rena had with those 3 students at school, that what was talked about before, that would make her snap. Now, Rena's case makes me think that what is affecting her actually stays in her body. Because as far as we know, this infection happens in Hinamizawa only. She should not be affected outside, especially if we're talking about the idea that I brought before about the Higurashis. Like, there shouldn't really be Higurashis in the city, right? But it can be possible that Rena got infected by it before her leaving Hinamizawa, and she carried it with her as she went outside, and it actually made it worse. Does this mean that the more you are exposed, the more you will be infected? Nah, in which case everyone in the village should be affected by this. So this means that it is a matter of no longer being exposed to it, and thus having the effects diminish over time. That as long as you do not get stressed or angered, as long as you stay far away from Hinamizawa, without stress or anger for a long period of time, the infection will diminish, and eventually it will just go away. It can be possible that if Rena did not move back to Hinamizawa and just stayed outside and tried her best to recover mentally, the infection might have disappeared. But no, now that she came back to Hinamizawa, the infection keeps increasing. Kind of like trying to recover from alcohol and drugs, going through treatment and withdrawals. And now that she's back in Hinamizawa, she's back to doing drugs. No, my little baby girl being affected, being drugged and going through withdrawals and stressful situations. Oh, what kind of horrific things she must be imagining now. Oh, the horror. Hinamizawa is a small and peaceful village. This is the kind of place that you would go to and live in order to avoid the more chaotic life of the cities. You are not going to be dealing with any business tycoons or petty city crimes or robberies or snobby people or rich families living in mansions and dealing with the abuse. None of that. But when the protests start appearing in Hinamizawa, suddenly you have the entire village on edge, and that will activate the curse. So, in a way, based on the description that I offered of the infection, I guess it is pretty understandable that such a thing can be considered pretty rare. Cause keep in mind, only like 1 or 2 people die or are missing each year, which is a weird thing in itself. Why do people die and are missing during the Watanagashi festival specifically? Weird, isn't it? Is it pure coincidence, then? Well, if we are to think that this secret organization has created this thing to kill people, for what purpose I have no clue, the fact that they do so every year during the same period it's interesting. But maybe if we're talking about the other option that I offered, which is that the secret organization is kidnapping people to do research on them and trying to find a cure, then at least you can say, okay, now it is 1980. 1 year has passed. Let's assess the situation and see who is showing symptoms of the infection and grab test subjects and do tests on them for a good while. Because when you do scientific research, you do them at a specific period. Like, okay, you analyze this thing and you get the results, Let's see how it will progress in 1 month, or 2 months, or in a year. That's kind of how research works at times when you're trying to see the progress of a certain thing over a period of time. There is somewhat of a consistency when it comes to it being like 1 year apart or something like that. Not to mention that this protest happened around Watanagashi. It would make sense that they are doing research like 1 year apart, I guess, in that aspect. Now, some people may have had to die for this to happen, because maybe in order to find a cure for this thing, you need to put the victims at the highest level of stress / anxiety / anger and capture them so that you get the data that you need. Example with what I said before about trying to capture Keiichi. Either the secret organization captures their victims in time to do research on them, or they are too late and they find the victim dead before they even manage to grab him. Each year, they are grabbing new test subjects to see how this infection progresses. Maybe they keep trying to find a cure, but they keep failing at it. It's like they captured the wife of the damn protester in 1980, grabbed a cure, but the wife ends up dead, and it's like, ah, shit. Well, better luck next time, I guess. And then they try the same with the wife's priest, but she dies from the cure. They failed the cure, which actually killed the victim rather than cure them, and had to go back to the drawing board. Alright, let's try harder, guys. You can find justifications for some of the stuff that is happening if we are to think that this unknown entity, this secret organization, is trying to find a cure for why people are dying. But it still begs the question, where is this curse even coming from? Is it a natural phenomenon? Is it a natural evolution of these Higurashis since the beginning of time? Or was it artificially created by someone? By who? And why was it created? Well, I guess I can think of 2 scenarios for why this infection exists. One would be that this is a war weapon. Some Japanese jackasses decide to do this biological weapon that makes soldiers aggressive under rough conditions, to the point of killing soldiers in grotesque ways, like a bunch of monster demonic kamikazes on the battlefield. Now, that would make sense if these soldiers were initially exposed to a lot of subliminal visual images that would affect their minds. Like, make that soldier watch the TV screen for a good while by the order of the doctor / the scientist, so that the soldier will be affected by the subliminal messaging like more and more as time goes on. Cause otherwise, it makes no sense why they would put it into Higurashis, like the insects. Yeah, let's put these soldiers in a room and make them listen to Higurashis for hours. That'll work. The reason why it would be untraceable? Well, because you wouldn't want your enemies to grab one of your dead soldiers and discover the cause of the curse. You don't want your enemies to replicate your tactic, so you make it as untraceable as possible. Or the other option would be that, I don't know, maybe some scientists were doing some experiments, like some innocent experiments on some Higurashis, on some cicadas. But suddenly an accident happened in the laboratory, and now the Higurashis just escaped, and, well, the rest is history. Now you have unleashed like a bunch of monster Higurashis that are gonna affect people for a good while. That maybe was a laboratory accident of some sorts. But there is no evidence of any of that for any of the situations that I offer right now. Therefore, I cannot really find a reason for why this would exist in the first place. It is said that the older people of Hinamizawa believe in Oyashiro. It seems to be something known for longer than the damn protests. So this brings up the idea of this either actually existing for a really, really, really long time, or these effects have started to happen since the protests and are masked as the old Oyashiro curse. That is a thing. That is something that I surely have thought of throughout the chapter. here is an interesting thing that I noted here during the read-through. It is the story that Ooishi told at Angel Mort about the woman who took her son to Onigafuchi to heal him of the incurable illness. To cure his son? Maybe Satoshi and the mother? Satoshi being grabbed by the organization to do research and cure him, while the mother is left behind, dead? Maybe. Alright, let's reel back a little bit over here. What about Rika and Satoko? Well, besides what I said about the Shinto priest, there isn't much I can say about Rika and Satoko other than they are just as much victims of this as Rena and Keiichi are. Not in the sense that they are affected by whatever's happening over here, by the curse, that they are affected by the curse, but they are victims in the sense that people around them are dying and suffering because of this. It's mostly Mion who might know more about this than the rest. Well, when I think about it, it can be possible Rena knows about this too from Mion. Or maybe even Rika and Satoko know some of this too. But nonetheless, they are victims in this. Satoko, Rika, and Rena might have had nothing to do with the protests, with the creation of this curse, and with Ooishi and the police, you know. Let me end this section with a little bit of a legend that I found. Like, I was trying to see if I can find something that is similar to the Oyashiro curse described, and for now, I found this about the Inunaki Village. The Inunaki Village is a Japanese urban legend dating back to the 1990s about a supposed village in Fukuoka Prefecture whose aggressive residents refused to follow the rules of the Japanese constitution. The village is said to be located in the vicinity of Mount Inunaki, near the Inunaki Mountain Pass. However, its exact location is unknown. A real Inunaki village, not connected to the legend, did exist from 1692 to 1889. They have like a handwritten sign reading, "The Japanese constitution is not in effect past here." So here, there is the story about a young couple who had their car break and they have to leave the car behind, and thus they found this empty village. And they, well, sort of empty. They were approached by a crazy old man who welcomed them to the Inunaki before murdering them with a sickle. That's not something that we have seen so far. Yet. We have not seen Rena's full repertoire of murder weapons. First is the metal bat, then the hatchet, and maybe next we're gonna get the sickle. However, here's the interesting thing over here. There's another story related to the village, which tells of a telephone booth near the Inunaki Bridge, which allegedly gets a call from Inunaki Village every night. The person that answers that call will be cursed and transported to the village. The victim of the curse will start to lose control of their body and mind before eventually dying. Oh! Yeah, you know, there is some resemblance there. Not just the losing control of their body and mind before eventually dying, but also the telephone booth. There may be something there. There may be some inspiration for that. Okay, so let's talk about some expectations that I have. So I do expect to see if we can get some stuff about Satoko and Rika in like chapter 2 in terms of how they are involved in all of this. I am not 100% sure how chapter 2 will go, but at least I know because of the all-star review that the girls and Keiichi will be back. So chapter 2 we will go quote-unquote back in time. Who knows what the nature of these chapters are. Like, maybe we're doing like parallel universes, maybe Keiichi goes back in time only himself, and this time we will have to go through the same events, but with the purpose of stopping the threat, like Move-Luv. Or Keiichi and the girls are in an endless plane of existence where they will endure eternal torture, being cursed and killing each other forever. We shall see. I expect the first part of the chapter to be the usual goofy shenanigans with the kids. in similar fashion to chapter 1. Like, I missed out. I want to spend time with the babies. Afterwards, who knows. Maybe we can follow the story, but from the girl's perspective at some point? Rika? Satoko? Maybe change it this time so that we also have Satoshi in the group. And so we will figure out some stuff from him. Or maybe we go back in time, say 1 year earlier, like 1982, and we get to see the 4 girls and Satoshi goof off. And we get to see Satoshi's perspective for a while. Maybe we will get to talk to Mio Takano some more, since, based on what I said, she may end up being more important than one realizes. I was also asked what kind of themes to expect out of the future of Higurashi. Okay, so you look at what Keiichi went through in chapter 1, you see how much he doubts those like Rena and Mion. We see his thoughts about them and whether to trust them or not. Maybe we'll tap into that like a little bit more. Like, while Keiichi will continue to suffer the effects of this curse, maybe he will eventually get to a point where he fights this curse from within, overcoming it by trusting his friends more. With the power of friendship! Which sounds cliche, but it is all in how you execute it. Also, in regards to the endless apology, both when the chapter started with Keiichi in the train and when Rena was in the rain that night, maybe the story will tap into the topic of whether something can be forgiven or not, or if something broken can ever be fixed or not. The girls know each other for years by now. Keiichi, on the other hand, he is the newest, so there is room for growth, both as friends and, possibly in a romantic sense as well with Rena. Are we gonna get more mystical? Maybe we're gonna delve more into ancient Japanese curses and legends of Japan? Will we get into more Shintoism stuff? Cause, well, I am totally down for that. Maybe in a fantastical sense, we will get to meet the Okamis, the Amaterasus, the Tsukuyomis. Hard to imagine how it will all go. Like, if you look at episode 1 of Yumineko, it is impossible to imagine how the rest of Yumineko will play out. One can go through episode 1 and think, okay, so the mission is to eventually figure out the culprit and stop the murders in the mansion. Nah, that's a little bit too naive of you to think of it as that easy. So, same here. Initially, you may think the final goal is to stop this curse together with Keiichi and the girls, but in actuality, there are going to be so many other moving pieces, like it will turn insane. Like, I mean, it already has a lot of moving pieces, so yeah. It may end up getting complete bonkers. Like, remember Keiichi holding up in his house, trying to keep the demons away. Well, next time, I expect a full-on Evil Dead moment of Keiichi and me suiting ourselves up with shotguns, rifles, and chainsaw to go on a demon killing spree. Groovy. The first chapter was lovely. I loved the time I had with the girls. Like, I want more of that. The things we went through with Keiichi was fascinating and horrific. Like, the way the intense horror moments were described, like how it was done. I want to see more of it. Like, I want to see how creative it can get in terms of what Keiichi can go through. Like, what kinds of torture Keiichi will go through. And yes, I know this sounds like I am enjoying the thought of Keiichi being a punching bag for horror, but, well, Higurashi is a horror story too, right? That's what I've been told. That's the kind of feeling I'm getting out of this, besides the whole detectiving and such. I want Higurashi to truly make me feel scared. I got goosebumps at times, but I do hope that one day Higurashi may end up finally breaking me and making me feel like not turning the next page, to make me feel scared to go forward. Like, if it's ever gonna be possible, cause I like to think that I'm not that much of a scaredy cat. I would feel more sorry for Keiichi and the girls than I'm actually to be scared and all that. But, well, who knows? Who knows? I mean, Satoko and Rika, they were not hurt in this first chapter. But the thought of my sweet babies being hurt is just bad. Like, don't hurt my babies. Rena's fingers getting hurt because of it is... that's quite rough. It's more so the torture of the characters that will get you. Like Rena getting her fingers caught on that door, it hurts to see more than seeing Rena instantly dead at the end of the chapter. Like, it's very easy to love the girls in Keiichi. Like, I need more of them together. Ooishi, he was a nice character. I wanna trust him. Like, I surely will trust him for now. Tomitake was lovely. Mio Takano, not much I can say about her. Like, we barely talked to her and all that. The AC in the car is lovely. It is a nice character. It is a nice breath of fresh air from Yumineko, where there are so many characters. Whereas here, while there are quite a few extras, like the villagers, the other kids at school, Keiichi's parents, while there are a lot of those, and some of the adults, the story is very much focused on the girls and Keiichi. Like, it is very comfy with just the 5 kids playing together. And when Keiichi was being all by himself for like half of the chapter, besides him interacting with Ooishi a lot, it really felt like we were alone for the most part, and I was missing the girls a lot. It overall feels a lot smaller, which is nice, cause I won't lie, I look at Yumineko and I'm like, all these characters in one place, like I need some air. Like, I've heard stuff about how Ryukishi was not able to make all the sprites that he wanted in the first chapter. For example, Keiichi, more than likely he's gonna get his sprites like much later. Whereas he didn't get to make sprites for Chie, the professor. I heard that Mio's sprites were not made until much later. I think the same case was with Tomitake, I don't know, I don't remember. But either way, it was a case of Ryukishi having to focus on the girls first and, also try to release the first chapter, like at the same time, so he had to scrape off some sprites for much later for like the side characters. But at the same time, I'm liking how this chapter went in the sense that, yeah, it really felt like for like the second half of this chapter, we were alone with Keiichi. We didn't get to see the faces of Keiichi's parents or the villages and all that, and because of that, it all contributed to us feeling lonely with Keiichi, even if we talked with his parents and the doctor and like 1 or 2 villagers here and there and all that. Like, it contributed how we were not able to see like any sprites. It contributed to the feeling of loneliness that we had with Keiichi. So there were advantages and disadvantages to that. I don't know how crazy Higurashi is gonna get from here. Like, who knows how many characters will keep appearing, cause I doubt it will be just these characters for the entire story. Like, there will be more, whether we're talking about spirits and demons showing up, or we meet more important villagers and town people, or having other police guys, or we will get to see Satoshi some more, the victims of the previous years, and so on. Also, I did show interest in seeing this Onigafuchi, this swamp/bog where they say bodies disappear into. Like, when that was mentioned, it was like one of those first things that I thought we should do, to check it out and see if we find anything there. Like, we managed to find it. It looks very scary. I look at the water, where more than likely all the victims that disappeared fell into. It's eerie. Almost as if I look at it longer than I should, it would envelop my mind and put it in a state of haze. Like, I cannot look away from it. I'm glued here, my heart rate increasing more and more, not being able to move a single bone. I can't.
Gotcha! I must spook the soul out of your body there.
Christ! Alright, ha ha ha. Yeah, you got me there. You got me. Alright, well. If you don't mind, I'm just gonna...
Hey!
Hmm?
I'm wet here. Won't you give this lady a hand and fix the problem?
Is this really okay? Maybe flying too close to the sun with this gin. Nah, nice try. Like, I won't fall for that again. As if I'm gonna... From one rabbit hole into another. Hey there! Listen, these videos take quite a lot of time and effort to make. Help a skeleton out if you feel generous today. Coffee is surely the way to go. That way I'll be able to create grand things in the future. Anything that comes to your mind when it comes to Higurashi and Yumineko content. Like this video right over here, if you're also a Yumineko fan. You should totally check it out. I can do it. I can make your wildest dreams come true. Also, make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and also join Discord and Twitter for updates and discussions. That'll be it for now. Time to move on to chapter 2. See ya!